The eviction notice trembled in my hands as I stared at my husband's signature scrolled across the bottom, not a copy, but his actual signature in blue ink, as casual as if he were signing a birthday card. The electronic key fob to our front door flashed red when I tried it, refusing to grant me access to my own home. The security code had been changed. I'm Morgan, a 34-year-old ICU nurse, and this was how I discovered my husband of 7 years had sold our home without telling me. Ethan. I called out, my voice echoing through our, no, not our anymore, front porch. My scrubs were still damp with sweat after a grueling 12-hour night shift where I'd lost 2 patients but saved a third. The spare key I kept hidden beneath the decorative rock wasn't there either. Through the window, I could see my suitcase sitting in the middle of the otherwise empty living room floor. My phone buzzed, a notification from Ethan. Had to make an executive decision, honey. Market was too good to pass up. Your things are packed. The new owners move in next week. I read it 3 times, each time feeling the rage build higher in my chest, mixing with the bone-deep exhaustion that came with back-to-back night shifts. Executive decision, like I was some employee he could steamroll instead of his wife. With shaking fingers, I called my sister. Piper, come get me, I managed to say when she answered, my voice cracking. Ethan sold the house. He what? Piper's voice shot up an octave, the sounds of her classroom briefly audible in the background. Without telling you? Without discussing it? There's an eviction notice, my suitcase is inside, and I can't even get to it. The security code's been changed. I'm coming right now. Don't move. Riley's with me, she just picked me up for lunch. 20 minutes later, Piper's practical sedan pulled into the driveway. Her partner, Riley, was with her, thank God. While Piper wrapped me in a tight hug, Riley, who worked in construction specializing in security systems, assessed the electronic lock. Standard keypad system, Riley said, her voice calm and methodical. Give me 5 minutes. Is this even legal? Piper asked, still holding me, her teacher's ID badge pressing against my arm. Does it matter? He did it anyway. I wiped my eyes, refusing to cry in front of the neighbors who were already peeking through their blinds. 7 years, Pipe. 7 years, and he doesn't even have the decency to discuss it with me. Riley had the door open in 3 minutes flat, using techniques I didn't understand but was immensely grateful for. The house echoed emptily as we stepped inside. Most of the furniture was gone. My suitcase sat in the middle of the floor like some kind of sacrifice, with a note taped to it. Honey, I read aloud, I know you'll be upset, but this is for the best. The market's hot and we made a killing. I've moved most of our things to storage. Take what you need for now. We'll talk tonight. Love, E. For the best? Piper snatched the note from my hands, her teacher voice coming out. The audacity of this man. I opened the suitcase, my heart sinking. He'd packed some of my clothes, all wrong of course. No underwear, no toiletries, just random dresses and pants thrown together. Not a single piece of my nursing uniforms, not my compression socks, nothing I'd actually need for work. Not even the medical journals I'd been studying for my critical care certification. You're staying with us, Riley said firmly, placing a steady hand on my shoulder. No discussion. My phone buzzed again. Ethan, don't be dramatic about this. It's just business. Just business, I repeated, showing them the text, my voice hollow. Our home is just business. The home I worked double shifts to help pay for. Call Diane, Piper suggested, referring to my best friend from college. She works at the bank. She'll know if this is even legal. I nodded, but before I could dial, another text came through. This one from Marcus, Ethan's friend from business school. Hey Morgan, Ethan told me about the house. Great deal, right? You must be thrilled about the investment opportunity. That's when it hit me. Marcus knew before I did. Ethan had told his friend about selling our house, but hadn't bothered to tell his own wife. The wife who'd just spent 16 hours keeping people alive while he was apparently signing away our home. I need to get some things, I said, heading upstairs, my body moving on autopilot. The master bedroom was stripped bare except for a few boxes labeled Morgan stuff in Ethan's hasty scrawl. As I grabbed what I actually needed, my nursing credentials, my specialized textbooks, the family photo album, I found our wedding photo still hanging on the wall. Ethan's smile looked different now, not loving but smug, like he'd won something. Found this in the kitchen, Riley called up. She appeared in the doorway holding a stack of papers. Looks like loan documents. They're dated 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks. He'd been sitting on this for 3 weeks, watching me water the garden after long shifts, paint the guest room on my rare weekend off, plan our future in a house he'd already sold. 3 weeks of kissing me goodbye as I left for the night shift, knowing I was saving for our future medical device investment while he was selling our home. Morgan, Piper said softly, using her calming voice reserved for upset students, what are you going to do? I took one last look at our wedding photo, then carefully took it off the wall. The frame came apart easily in my hands. Behind our smiling faces, I found what I was looking for: access to a cloud storage account Ethan thought I didn't know about. He'd hidden the password there 2 years ago, thinking he was so clever. First, I said, snapping a photo of the information with my phone, I'm going to call Diane. Then I'm calling Zane. Zane, the lawyer? Piper raised an eyebrow, recognition dawning. Diane's cousin? Ethan wants to talk business. I grabbed my properly packed bag and headed for the door, exhaustion temporarily forgotten, replaced by a cold, clear purpose. Let's talk business. As we pulled away from the house, my phone buzzed one final time. Ethan again, don't forget dinner at 7 o'clock, we'll discuss the new arrangement. That medical device investment is still on the table. I turned off my phone. Ethan had no idea what kind of arrangement was coming. At Diane's apartment, he's been siphoning money for months, Diane said, scrolling through my banking app. We sat at her glass dining table, laptops open and financial documents spread everywhere. Her apartment was impeccably decorated, a stark contrast to the chaos we were uncovering. Look at these transfers, small amounts but frequent, always just under $5,000 to avoid triggering bank alerts. My hands clenched around my coffee mug, the ICU nurse in me noting my own elevated heart rate and blood pressure. Where was it going? An account I can't directly access, she pointed to a recurring transfer label, her professional banker demeanor momentarily breaking with an expression of disgust. But whatever BMI Ventures is, it's been getting regular payments since January. The same month you started putting away money for that medical device startup investment. 3 hours had passed since I'd left my former home. Piper and Riley had dropped me at Diane's downtown apartment, knowing her financial expertise was exactly what I needed. My phone, now turned back on, showed 15 missed calls from Ethan. I ignored them all, the betrayal still too raw. Zane will be here in 20 minutes, Diane said, checking her sleek watch. He's bringing the property records. She'd immediately called her cousin when I explained the situation. I still can't believe Ethan told Marcus before telling me, I said, pulling up the text messages, the condescension in Marcus's message making my skin crawl. They were probably laughing about it while I was working back-to-back shifts at the hospital. Diane's face darkened. Speaking of Marcus, she turned her laptop toward me. Look who owns BMI Ventures. There it was, Marcus's name, clear as day, listed as the primary owner. My phone buzzed again. Ethan, where are you? We need to talk about this like adults. Like adults? I scoffed, showing Diane the message. Where was this adult conversation when he was selling our house? When I was working 16-hour shifts to save for our future? The doorbell rang. Zane arrived with a leather briefcase and a grim expression, his suit impeccable even at this hour. I'd met him once at Diane's birthday party, but had never needed his legal services until now. Morgan, he said, sitting down and loosening his tie, I've reviewed the sale documents. There's good news and bad news. Bad news first, I said, bracing myself. The sale is legal. Ethan had the right to sell because the house was only in his name. What? I nearly knocked over my coffee. That's impossible. We bought it together. I worked double shifts for the down payment. Check your closing documents from the purchase, Zane said, his voice calm but sympathetic. I pulled out my phone and opened the cloud storage I'd accessed from behind our wedding photo. Ethan wasn't the only one who could be clever. I'd been making digital copies of important documents for years, just in case. As I scrolled through the files, my stomach dropped. The deed only listed Ethan as the owner. I felt lightheaded, the room spinning slightly from exhaustion and shock. But I paid half the down payment. I said, my voice rising. I have proof, it's right here. I pulled up the transfer records from my banking history, showing multiple large deposits to our joint account labeled House DP. That's the good news, Zane said, leaning forward. You've maintained excellent records. Every contribution you've made is documented. That gives us leverage. Leverage for what? A lawsuit, Diane cut in, her financial advisor persona fully engaged. He sold your home without consent while taking your money under false pretenses. Not to mention what appears to be financial infidelity with these transfers. My phone buzzed yet again. This time it was Marcus, Ethan's worried sick. Just come home and work this out. This tantrum isn't helping anyone. Home, I laughed bitterly, showing them the message. What home? The one he sold out from under me while I was saving people's lives? Zane pulled out more papers. There's something else you should see. The sale price of your house. It's well below market value, almost suspiciously so. Diane grabbed the papers, her eyes widening. He sold a $750,000 house for $600,000 in this market? That makes no sense unless there's something we're not seeing. I remembered the cloud storage access. Wait. I dug deeper into the files, finding a folder labeled Taxes 2022. Look at this, an LLC Ethan created last year. And look who else is on it. Marcus's name appeared again, along with 3 other names I didn't recognize. Pull up the property records for the buyer, Diane said suddenly, the one who bought your house. Zane typed quickly on his laptop. The buyer is Riverside Properties LLC, registered 6 months ago. Check the owners, I said, already knowing what we'd find. Sure enough, Riverside Properties LLC was owned by the same people in Ethan's LLC. They're flipping it, Diane said, her financial expertise connecting the dots instantly. Buy low through a shell company, renovate using connections, sell high. The profit stays hidden in the LLC, away from me, I finished, in case of divorce. Away from the medical investments we were supposed to be making together. My phone buzzed one last time. Ethan, this silent treatment is childish. I'm trying to build a future for us. I stood up, a strange calm settling over me, the kind of clarity that sometimes comes during a medical crisis when everything slows down and your training takes over. Zane, what exactly do you need to build a case? Bank records? Proof of contribution? Evidence of deliberate deception? He gestured at the spread of documents before us. Which you seem to have in spades. And how long should I wait to respond to Ethan? Diane and Zane exchanged looks. Give me 48 hours, Zane said. Don't tell him anything. Don't meet him. Don't respond. Let him think you're too emotional to think straight. I nodded, picking up my phone. One last message appeared from Riley. Remember what I learned the hard way: the best revenge isn't served hot or cold, it's served when they least expect it. I turned my phone off again and looked at Zane, all traces of fatigue gone from my body. Let's talk about what happens next. 2 days later, Zane's office. Every deposit, every transfer, every contribution you've made to joint expenses, Zane said, organizing files on his polished mahogany desk. It's all here, going back 7 years. I had spent the last 2 days holed up in Zane's downtown office, piecing together my financial history, running on coffee and determination. Diane sat beside me, taking notes and highlighting patterns we'd found, her banking expertise proving invaluable. Look at this, Diane pointed to a spreadsheet on her tablet. You paid for the kitchen renovation last year, $40,000 from the money you saved working holiday shifts 3 years straight. That renovation mysteriously increased the house's value by $90,000. Money that Ethan and his friends will now pocket, Zane added, adjusting his glasses. All while you were pulling double shifts at the ICU. My phone lit up with another message from Ethan, 3 days of silence. Real mature, Morgan. I'm starting to lose my patience. We have investment decisions to make. He's getting nervous, Diane observed, a hint of satisfaction in her voice. Good. Let him squirm. A knock at the door interrupted us. Riley walked in carrying a stack of papers, her construction uniform still on, clearly coming straight from work. You were right about the renovation company, she said, dropping the documents on Zane's desk. It's owned by one of the LLC partners. My foreman confirmed it. They've been flipping houses all over town using the same scheme. I pulled records from the permits office. I flipped through the papers, my clinical focus kicking in as I analyzed the pattern. These are all recent sales, last 18 months, Riley confirmed, pointing to dates. They buy low through shell companies, renovate using their own company, then sell high through different shells. The permits are all pushed through by the same inspector. The profits never touch personal accounts. Zane leaned back in his chair, a slight smile playing on his lips. This is better than we hoped. It's not just your house, it's a pattern of deliberate fraud. My phone buzzed again, this time from Piper. Ethan just showed up at my school looking for you. I told him to get lost before I called security. Also, you need to see what Marcus's wife just posted on Instagram. I pulled up the post. There it was, Brooke showing off their new vacation home in Aspen with the caption "New beginnings in our mountain retreat," posted the same week my house had been sold. That's interesting timing, Diane said, looking over my shoulder. Wonder where that down payment came from? Especially given what you told me about their money troubles last year. Zane was already typing. Property records show, would you look at that, purchased through BMI Ventures, the same company getting those regular transfers from Ethan. The medical investment funds, I said quietly, the realization hitting me like a physical blow. The money I'd saved for our future, our supposed shared dream, had funded their vacation home. Riley sat down next to me. Morgan, I know this is overwhelming, but you need to hear something. She pulled out her phone and played a voice message. Riley, I know you and Piper are hiding her. Ethan's voice filled the room, the controlled anger in his tone all too familiar. Just tell Morgan she's being ridiculous. This is business. The house was in my name, I had every right. She needs to understand her place in this marriage. My hands stopped shaking. Something inside me hardened, like the way I feel when a difficult case comes into the ICU and I know I'm the patient's best chance. My place? I repeated, my voice eerily calm. Let me show him my place. Zane pulled out a fresh legal pad. Here's what we're going to do. First, we file an emergency injunction to freeze the sale proceeds. Then we go after the LLC for fraud. Won't that tip our hand? Diane asked, her banker's caution showing. No, Zane smiled, because Morgan here has something they don't know about. I pulled out my phone and showed them the cloud storage access. Ethan's private records, everything he thought was safely hidden. Including emails between him and Marcus discussing this scheme going back 2 years. Riley added another message from Ethan, I'm giving you until tomorrow to come home and discuss this reasonably. After that, things will have to change. Things will change, all right, I muttered, thinking of all the night shifts I'd worked while he was planning this betrayal. Zane handed me a document. Sign here. This gives us permission to subpoena all the LLC records. As I signed, Diane's phone pinged. She read the message and let out a low whistle. What? I asked. Remember that real estate agent I called? She just sent over Ethan's showing appointments from last month. Guess who was looking at luxury condos downtown? I didn't need to guess. Ethan had been planning his exit strategy for months, while I was caring for patients, saving lives, and dreaming of our future medical venture. Riley put her hand on my shoulder, her grip firm and reassuring. Morgan, whatever you decide to do next, we're all behind you. Zane, I said, straightening in my chair, feeling more like myself than I had in days. How long until everything's ready? Give me till Friday, then we can move. I nodded, picking up my phone. One new message waited from Brooke. Morgan, we need to talk. There's something you should know about Ethan and Marcus's business trips to Aspen. Friday it is, I said, looking at Zane. Time to show Ethan exactly what my place is in this marriage. Diane grinned. Should we tell him you're coming? No, I replied, finally allowing myself a small smile. Let's make it a surprise. After all, he loves making executive decisions without consulting me. Let's see how he likes it when the tables are turned. Zane gathered the documents into his briefcase. Remember, not a word to anyone. Let them think you're still too emotional to function. The element of surprise is our biggest advantage. I looked at my phone one last time before turning it off. Ethan's last message glowed on the screen. I hope you're using this time to think about your behavior. Oh, I'm thinking, all right, I said, my nursing instincts for precision and timing taking over. Just not the way he imagined. Friday, at the restaurant, you're late, Ethan snapped as I slid into my seat at his favorite steakhouse. 5 days of silence had clearly worn on him. His usual perfectly pressed shirt was wrinkled, his hair unkempt, and dark circles shadowed his eyes. For someone so concerned with appearances, he looked terrible. Traffic, I murmured, playing the part of the chastised wife, though inside I felt a surge of satisfaction at his disheveled state. Across the restaurant, Diane sat at the bar pretending to review documents while keeping watch, her banker's attire allowing her to blend seamlessly with the after-work crowd. I ordered for you already, Ethan said, his tone softening slightly as he attempted to regain control of the situation. Your usual salmon with dill sauce, of course. He had, heaven forbid, allowed me to make my own choices, even here, in this moment, when our entire marriage was crumbling. The irony wasn't lost on me that he'd choose a $40 entree without consulting me while simultaneously selling our home without a word. Where have you been staying? He he asked, trying to sound casual but unable to hide the irritation in his voice. I could see the calculation behind his eyes. Which assets might I have accessed? Which friends might have sheltered me? I shrugged, examining my menu despite his already ordering, the leather-bound list of overpriced entrees suddenly fascinating. This silent treatment is beneath you, Morgan. I've been trying to reach you for days. We have investment decisions that can't wait. The waiter arrived with our drinks. I noticed Ethan had ordered me white wine, though I'd switched to red months ago after a particularly difficult shift when a patient had told me life was too short for drinks you don't love. Just another detail he'd never bothered to notice about the woman sharing his life. "How's Marcus?" I asked innocently, swirling the unwanted wine in my glass. "Enjoying his new place in Aspen?" Ethan's hand tightened around his whiskey glass, knuckles going white. "What does that have to do with anything?" "Just making conversation," I replied with a sweet smile that didn't reach my eyes. "Isn't that what you wanted to talk about? Investments? Real estate? Business opportunities?" Before he could respond, my phone buzzed with a text from Zane, "Done. All accounts frozen." I took a deliberate sip of the wine I didn't want, watching Ethan over the rim of my glass. His phone buzzed in his pocket, then again and again. The symphony of incoming messages became impossible to ignore. "Excuse me," he said, pulling it out with practiced casualness that crumbled as he read the messages. His face went from annoyed to alarmed in seconds. "I need to make a call." The moment he stepped away toward the restrooms, Diane slid into his seat. "Marcus is blowing up his phone," she whispered, her eyes bright with controlled excitement. "Zane's injunction just hit. They can't access any of the LLC accounts." "How long until he realizes about the other accounts?" "Minutes, maybe seconds," I replied, feeling the strange calm that sometimes comes in the ICU when a critical situation begins to stabilize. Ethan returned, his face ashen. "Morgan, I need to handle something urgent. We'll have to do this another time." "But you ordered my salmon," I said, widening my eyes in mock disappointment, channeling the Nurses Academy acting skills I'd developed to calm panicked patients. "And we haven't even talked about the house yet. Or our medical investment." His phone buzzed again. This time he answered it at the table, his composure completely gone. "What do you mean frozen?" he hissed into the phone. "How can they all be frozen?" I could hear Marcus's panicked voice on the other end, the sound of a man watching his schemes collapse. "Check the backup account." Ethan snapped, his whisper growing louder. "What do you mean it's empty?" "That's impossible." I pulled out my own phone, casually opening my banking app. "Oh, honey," I said softly, "is something wrong with the accounts? The ones for our medical investment?" His head snapped up, eyes narrowing with sudden comprehension. "What did you do?" "Me? I'm just a nurse who doesn't understand business, remember? Just a wife who should know her place." The waiter appeared with our food. "The salmon with dill sauce for the lady." "She's not staying," Ethan growled, earning a surprised look from the server. "Actually," I said, smoothing my napkin across my lap with deliberate care, "I think I am. You did order for me, after all. I wouldn't want to be wasteful after all those lectures about fiscal responsibility." His phone buzzed yet again. This time it was a text from his bank. I knew exactly what it said, the same message I'd received an hour ago when I'd transferred every penny from our joint accounts into a new one only in my name. "Morgan," he said, his voice dangerously low, "what have you done?" "Made an executive decision," I replied, cutting into my salmon. The market was too good to pass up. "Isn't that what you told me about our house?" "You can't do this." "Really?" The accounts were in my name, too, unlike the house. Funny how that works. The color drained from his face. How did you know about that? Or about BMI Ventures? Or about the shell companies? I took another bite of salmon, savoring both the flavor and the moment. It's actually quite good. You always did know what I liked. Well, except for the wine. And which house I wanted to live in. And how I felt about you selling it without telling me. His phone kept buzzing, messages from Marcus, from their other partners, from their banks. The carefully constructed house of cards was collapsing in real time. This is illegal, he sputtered, looking wildly around the restaurant as if seeking an escape. Diane appeared at our table again, this time with Zane. Actually, Zane said, placing a thick envelope on the table, everything she's done is perfectly legal. Unlike, say, using shell companies to hide assets from your spouse, or fraudulently using someone's medical investment funds for personal gain. Ethan's face went from white to red in an instant. You brought a lawyer to dinner? Well, you brought Marcus into our marriage, I countered. Fair is fair. Miss Mitchell, Zane said formally, shall we proceed with filing the divorce papers? Divorce? Ethan choked. Morgan, be reasonable. I stood up, finally meeting his eyes directly. I am being reasonable. In fact, I'm being business-minded. Isn't that what you always wanted from me? You'll regret this, Ethan threatened, but his voice lacked conviction. No, I said, picking up my purse, I regret not doing it sooner. Oh, and Ethan, the salmon really was excellent. You should try it. I already paid for it with what's left of your credit card. As I walked out with Zane and Diane, I heard Ethan's phone buzz one final time. Glancing back, I saw him staring at the screen, all color draining from his face. I knew from Brooke that she'd just sent him a message. We need to talk about the women you brought to Aspen. The night wasn't over yet. They're scrambling, Diane said, scrolling through her phone. We sat in Zane's office the next morning, watching the aftermath unfold through the wall of windows overlooking the city. Brooke has been posting cryptic messages about trust and betrayal on Instagram. She's tagged every partner's wife in them, Diane announced, her banker's precision evident in how she tracked the digital fallout. The LLC's lawyer has been trying to reach me since dawn, Zane added, checking his messages while adjusting his tie. They're offering to negotiate. I sipped my coffee, feeling strangely calm, like the unusual clarity that sometimes comes after a long trauma case. Too late for that. My phone lit up with a text from Riley. Ethan just tried to get into your old house. The new owners called the police. He's completely unraveling. Piper said from her perch on Zane's windowsill, good. Let him feel what it's like to be locked out of your own home. Her teacher voice had an edge I rarely heard. Another message popped up, this one from Marcus's wife, Brooke, Morgan, I'm ready to talk. Meet me at Lakeside Cafe in an hour. I showed the message to Zane, who nodded approvingly. Go, but wear this. He handed me a small recording device. Just in case. These situations can get complicated fast. At the cafe was quiet when I arrived, the morning rush having subsided. Brooke sat in a corner booth, looking nothing like her perfectly polished Instagram photos. Her eyes were red, her designer handbag clutched tight against her chest like a shield. Even her normally impeccable makeup couldn't hide her distress. Thank you for coming, she said as I sat down, her voice hoarse. I should have told you sooner. Told me what? I kept my nurses calm, the same steady presence I used with anxious patients. She pulled out her phone, hands shaking slightly. I found these last month. I didn't know what to do with them. She slid the phone across the table. Photos filled the screen, Ethan and Marcus at various locations, always with different women. The timestamps matched their supposed business trips when Ethan had told me he was attending medical investment conferences, the very ones I'd paid for with my overtime shifts. "There's more," Brooke said, her voice breaking. The houses weren't just for flipping, they were party houses. "That's why they sold below market value," I finished, the pieces clicking into place with clinical precision. "They needed places that couldn't be traced back to them." She nodded, a single tear tracking down her cheek. The women, some of them were escorts, expensive ones, paid through BMI Ventures. "That's what the regular transfers were for," I said, thinking of the money that should have gone toward our medical device startup. The money I'd been saving for years. My phone buzzed, a message from Ethan: "Whatever Brooke tells you is a lie. She's unstable from her medication. Don't trust her." I showed Brooke the text. She laughed bitterly, wiping at her tear. "Unstable? I have bank statements, Morgan. Receipts, hotel bookings, everything. I was an interior designer before I married Marcus. I know how to document things. Would you be willing to show those to my lawyer?" "I'll do better than that." She pulled out a small flash drive from her purse. "I'll give them to you. Marcus doesn't know I made copies to cloud storage and this backup." Just then, both our phones buzzed simultaneously, a group message from Marcus to several numbers: "Emergency meeting at the office. Everyone needs to be there, no exceptions." "He's panicking," Brooke said, her designer composure cracking further. "They all are. The wives are talking to each other now, comparing notes. You're not the only one they've cheated." I stood up, gathering my things. "Come with me to Zane's office. We need to move fast." Back at Zane's, the pieces fell into place rapidly. Brooke's evidence, combined with what we already had, painted a picture far darker than simple real estate fraud. "This changes everything," Zane said, reviewing the files spread across his desk. His lawyer's facade momentarily dropped in surprise. "We're not just looking at civil charges anymore. This is criminal territory, money laundering, possible tax evasion, misappropriation of funds." My phone hadn't stopped buzzing. Messages from Ethan grew increasingly desperate. "Morgan, we need to talk. This has gone too far. Think about what you're doing to our future. To our plans. I can explain everything." Diane, who'd been uncharacteristically quiet, suddenly sat up straight. "Look at this," she said, pointing to her laptop screen. "They're trying to transfer the house again to another shell company. This transaction just attempted to clear." "They can't," Zane said, frowning. "The injunction prevents any property transfers." "They're trying anyway." "Desperate men do desperate things," Diane replied, her financial expertise recognizing the panic move. As if on cue, Piper burst into the office, her school lanyard still around her neck. "Ethan's at the house again. The new owners called Riley. He's trying to break in through the back door." Zane was already dialing. "I'm calling the police. This ends now." I picked up my phone, finally responding to Ethan's barrage of messages. "Stop trying to enter the house. It's not yours anymore. Just like I'm not yours anymore." His reply came instantly: "You have no idea what you're doing. You're ruining everything we built." "No," I typed back, feeling the calm certainty I sometimes felt when making critical medical decisions. "I'm exposing what you built." "There's a difference." Brooke touched my arm. "There's one more thing you should know." She pulled up another photo on her phone. It showed Ethan with a young woman entering a jewelry store. "This was last week, right after he sold your house." The woman wore the same type of medical scrubs I wore, but she was clearly decades younger. Ethan had once commented that I was aging out of my nursing career. Now I understood the comment's true meaning. "Send it to me," I said quietly, my professional composure holding firm. My phone buzzed one final time, a message from Marcus. "Morgan, whatever Ethan's done, we can work this out. Name your price. Think about the medical startup opportunity you'd be losing." I looked at Zane. "They're offering a buyout." He smiled grimly. "They don't understand, do they? This isn't about money anymore." "No," I agreed, standing up, feeling stronger than I had in months. "It's about justice. And it's time they learned the difference between saving lives and taking advantage of those who do." Brooke straightened in her chair, smoothing her designer dress. "What's next?" I checked my watch, the practical timepiece I wore for hospital shifts rather than the diamond one Ethan had given me. "Their emergency meeting starts in an hour. Should we show up uninvited?" Zane gathered his files. "Let's give them a meeting they'll never forget." The elevator doors opened to the 12th floor of Marcus's sleek downtown office building. Ethan's voice echoed down the hallway, sharp with panic, bouncing off the modern art pieces adorning the walls. "What do you mean you can't reverse it?" he shouted, his usually controlled voice fraying at the edges. "Call them again. There has to be someone higher up we can reach." I walked purposefully toward the glass-walled conference room, Zane and Brooke flanking me, Diane bringing up the rear, her professional banker's posture lending us an air of authority. Through the transparent walls, I could see Ethan pacing frantically while Marcus sat with his head in his hands. 3 other men, their business partners, huddled around an open laptop, their expressions grim. "Ready?" Zane whispered, his briefcase held like a shield. I took a deep breath, channeling the calm I relied on during code blue emergencies, and pushed open the door. "Hope we're not interrupting," I said, my voice clear and steady. The room fell silent instantly. Ethan froze mid-stride, his expensive Italian loafers rooted to the spot. His face registered shock, then disbelief, then fear in rapid succession. Marcus recovered first, standing up and straightening his designer tie. "This is a private meeting." "Private like the houses?" Brooke stepped forward, her designer heels clicking decisively on the hardwood floor. "Or private like the escorts?" Marcus's face went ash-white, all pretense of composure evaporating. "Brooke, what are you?" "Sit down," Zane commanded, his voice cutting through the tension with practiced legal authority. "All of you. Now." The men exchanged glances but complied, years of corporate conditioning kicking in. Only Ethan remained standing, his knuckles white against the back of his chair. "You can't be here," he said, but his voice wavered, lacking the confidence he'd shown when ordering my dinner just days before. I pulled out a chair at the head of the table, the power position, and sat down deliberately. "Actually, I can. You see, I'm now a majority stakeholder in BMI Ventures." "That's impossible," one of the partners sputtered, his golf tan contrasting with his suddenly pale face. "Check your phones," Diane suggested with professional sweetness. The transaction alerts should have come through by now. They did. The color drained from their faces as they saw the notifications confirming the new ownership structure. "How?" Ethan demanded, his voice a mixture of rage and disbelief. "Remember that emergency fund you kept in the offshore account?" I smiled, feeling oddly detached, like I sometimes did during complex medical procedures. "The one you thought I didn't know about?" Turns out having my name on the account meant I could use it to buy shares. A lot of shares. "You can't do this," Marcus said, desperation edging into his voice. "She already has," Zane interjected, dropping a thick folder on the table with a satisfying thud, along with providing evidence of fraud, money laundering, and several other interesting activities to the authorities. Ethan lunged for the folder. I pulled it back smoothly. I said, wagging my finger as I might to a difficult patient. You might want to see this first. I nodded to Diane, who started playing a video on the conference room's large display screen. Security footage appeared, clearly showing Ethan and Marcus entering various properties with different women. The timestamps matched Brooke's photos perfectly. We have hundreds of hours of this, I said quietly, from every house you flipped. Those security systems Riley helped install were quite thorough. Morgan, Ethan's voice turned pleading, his hands spread wide. Whatever you think this is, you've got it all wrong. Brooke cut in, her voice steady despite her tears. I already told her everything, Ethan. About the houses, the women, the parties, all of it. The medical conferences that never existed. Marcus slumped in his chair, his carefully cultivated image of success dissolving before our eyes. Brooke, please. The FBI is very interested in your business model, Zane continued, his tone conversational as if discussing the weather, particularly the part about using real estate transactions to launder money for your little side business. The other partners started whispering frantically among themselves, their fraternity of greed dissolving into every man for himself panic. You have two options, I said, standing up, drawing on the authority I used when directing emergency response teams. Option 1, we turn everything over to the authorities. You all face charges, your other properties get seized, your wives find out exactly what kind of business meetings you've been having. Option 2, one of the partners asked weakly, sweat beading on his forehead. You sign everything over. The properties, the companies, all of it. Walk away with enough to start over, but not enough to maintain your current lifestyles. That's blackmail. Ethan snarled, a flash of his true character breaking through. No, Zane corrected calmly, adjusting his glasses, it's negotiation. Your specialty, isn't it? My phone buzzed with a message from Piper. Police just arrested Ethan's college buddy trying to break into the house again. Want me to press charges? I showed the message to Ethan. Sending friends to do your dirty work now? You're bluffing, Marcus said suddenly, grasping at straws. You wouldn't risk losing everything in a legal battle. You care too much about that medical startup idea. I pulled out one final document, the paper crisp and official. Remember that prenup you made me sign, Ethan? The one that said I get nothing if I'm unfaithful? I slid the paper across the table. Turns out it works both ways. And unlike you, I have proof. Ethan grabbed the paper, his hands shaking as he read the clauses he'd insisted on but never thought would apply to him. You have 1 hour to decide, Zane announced, checking his watch. After that, we go to the authorities. You lose everything. Just for revenge? Ethan asked, his voice barely a whisper, genuine fear in his eyes for the first time. I leaned across the table, feeling the same intensity one felt when fighting to save a patient's life. No, honey. I'm just making an executive decision. The market for justice is too good to pass up. As we turned to leave, Brooke stood up, smoothing her designer dress. I'm going with them, she told Marcus. The divorce papers will be filed today. Brooke, wait, I paused at the door, turning back for one final blow. Ethan, that young nurse you bought the diamond bracelet for last week? The one in the blue scrubs? I smiled sweetly. She works at my hospital. Consider the statement she gave HR about your inappropriate advances our insurance policy. The last thing I saw as the door closed was Ethan's face crumpling as he realized just how completely he'd been outplayed by the wife he'd so thoroughly underestimated. In the elevator, Diane checked her watch. 59 minutes until their world implodes, unless they take the deal. They'll take it, I said confidently, the nurse in me recognizing the signs of men backed into a corner. Men like them always choose self-preservation over reputation. Zane's phone buzzed. Partner's lawyer just called. They're ready to negotiate. I smiled. Right on schedule. 3 days later, sign here, and here, Zane pointed to the marked lines with his monogrammed pen. Initial these pages. Ethan's hand trembled as he signed the documents across the conference table. Marcus and the other partners did the same, their lawyers hovering nervously behind them like anxious parents at a school recital. 3 days had passed since our confrontation. We were back in the same conference room, but the power dynamic had shifted dramatically. The expensive leather chairs that had once represented their kingdom now held the instruments of their surrender. That's the last of the property transfers, Zane announced, collecting the papers with methodical precision. BMI Ventures is now officially under new management. You've ruined us, Marcus muttered, not meeting anyone's eyes, his designer watch suddenly looking like a burden on his wrist. No, Brooke corrected from her seat beside me, her voice steady and clear, you ruined yourselves. We just exposed it. My phone buzzed with a message from Piper, the moving trucks just finished at the house. Everything's out. Riley supervised to make sure they didn't damage anything. Ethan looked up sharply at the sound, his eyes bloodshot from sleepless nights. Where are my things? In storage, I replied coolly, just like you did with mine. The access code will be sent to your lawyer. What am I supposed to do now? His voice cracked, the facade of the successful businessman completely shattered. Where am I supposed to go? Funny, I said, meeting his gaze directly, those are the exact questions I asked myself when you sold our house while I was working a double shift saving lives. One of the partners stood up abruptly, his expensive suit wrinkled from stress. This is insane. We had a good thing going. A good thing? Diane interrupted, pulling up images on the conference room screen. You mean these good things? Images flashed across the screen, their parties, their secret meetings, bank statements showing suspicious transfers, all cataloged with banker's precision. The men winced as their secret world was displayed in high definition. Enough, Zane said firmly. The deals are signed. You've all been more than fairly compensated, considering the alternatives. Fairly compensated? Ethan spat, a flash of his true nature breaking through. You've taken everything. Not everything, I corrected, using the calm voice I reserved for distraught family members in the ICU. Just the illegally obtained assets. You each still have your personal accounts, well, what's left of them? Marcus's lawyer cleared his throat. My client would like to discuss the matter of the Aspen property. The property purchased with laundered money? Zane raised an eyebrow. That property has been surrendered to authorities as evidence of criminal activity, unless you'd like to explain its funding source to the FBI. The lawyer fell silent, suddenly fascinated by his legal pad. My phone buzzed again, this time from Riley, police just called. They're ready to move on the other properties whenever you give the word. I showed the message to Zane, who nodded. Gentlemen, he announced, I suggest you use what's left of your resources to start fresh somewhere far away, because once this goes public. Public? Marcus's head snapped up. You promised we wouldn't press charges. Brooke cut in, we never promised silence. Ethan stood up, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. Morgan, please. We can work this out. We can start over with the medical investment. Like you were planning to start over with that young nurse? I pulled out one final photo, Ethan in the jewelry store, caught in the act. How much did that bracelet cost? More or less than the medical device funding you diverted? He collapsed back into his chair, defeated, the man who had always been in control now completely untethered. Mr. Mitchell, Zane said firmly, I suggest you leave now. Your new apartment lease starts today. The address has been sent to your lawyer. New apartment? Ethan looked confused, as if the concept of downsizing was foreign to him. 1 bedroom, 3rd floor walk-up, I said. The rent fits within your new budget. I picked it myself. Consider it my final executive decision in our marriage. The partners filed out one by one, their lawyers hurrying them toward the elevators like handlers managing disgraced politicians. Marcus paused at the door. Brooke, he started, reaching toward her. Save it, she cut him off, not even looking up from her phone. The divorce papers are being filed this afternoon. Your things will be gone by the time I get home. Ethan was the last to leave. He stopped beside my chair, his cologne unable to mask the scent of desperation. I never meant. He began. Yes, you did, I interrupted. You meant every bit of it. You just never thought I'd fight back. The door closed behind him with a final click, like the sound of a hospital room door after delivering difficult news. Well, Diane said into the silence, that was satisfying. Zane gathered his briefcase. The properties will be sold at market value, the proceeds will be split among the victims of their scheme, and the houses they used for their parties. Evidence in an ongoing investigation? Brooke asked, her designer purse now considerably lighter without the weight of her secrets. Zane smiled. The authorities are very interested in their guest list. My phone lit up one last time, a message from Ethan, I'm sorry. The medical device company could have been great. Too little, too late. Ready to go? Diane asked, standing up and smoothing her immaculate suit. I looked around the conference room where my marriage had effectively ended, where justice had finally been served. The room that had once intimidated me now seemed smaller, less significant. Just one more thing, I said, pulling out an envelope. Inside was the cloud storage access information I'd taken from behind our wedding photo, Ethan's secret insurance policy that had become his downfall. I deleted the account access from my phone and dropped the paper in the shredder. Now I'm ready. As we walked out, Brooke linked her arm through mine. What next? I smiled, feeling lighter than I had in years. I hear the real estate market is looking up. Maybe it's time to buy a new house. One that's all mine. New beginnings, perfect. I said, signing the final document with a flourish, feeling a lightness I hadn't experienced in months. The keys to my new house clinked satisfyingly as Zane handed them over, the sound of true ownership. Congratulations, he smiled, his usually serious demeanor softening. This one's all yours. No hidden surprises, no secret partners, no shell companies. Diane bounced excitedly beside me, her banker's composure momentarily forgotten. Can we see it now? I've been dying to see what you chose. We drove to the house, my house, in comfortable silence, the enormity of this fresh start settling over me. It sat on a quiet street in a neighborhood close to the hospital where I worked. It was smaller than my old home, but somehow more significant, more meaningful. The garden needed work, the paint was chipping in places, but it was mine, all mine, purchased with my own money, in my name alone. Look what we brought. Piper's voice rang out as we pulled up. She and Riley stood on the porch holding paint rollers, drop cloths, and takeout bags from my favorite Thai restaurant. We thought you might want to make it yours right away, Riley explained, her practical nature showing through. No sense living with someone else's design choices. My phone buzzed with a news alert. The headline made me pause, local real estate scheme exposed, multiple arrests made. They actually did it, Brooke said, reading over my shoulder. she'd arrived with a bottle of champagne and determination in her eyes, looking more alive than I'd ever seen her during her marriage to Marcus. They tried to start the business up again in another state. Not very smart, Zane noted, pulling up the full article on his phone. The FBI was watching their every move. Speaking of moves, Diane interrupted, her voice dripping with satisfaction. Ethan's young nurse friend, the one in the blue scrubs, just testified against him. Turns out she was gathering evidence for 3 other nurses he approached inappropriately. I unlocked the front door, cutting off the conversation about my past to focus on my future. The empty rooms echoed with possibility, with promise. No furnishings yet, no decor, just space waiting to be filled with new memories. Paint first or food first? Piper asked practically, holding up the rollers. Actually, I said, there's something else first. I pulled out a small box from my bag. Inside was a framed photo, not my wedding photo this time, but a new one taken last week. It showed all of us, me, Piper, Riley, Diane, Brooke, even Zane, celebrating the final court victory with genuine smiles and raised glasses. Where should we hang it? Riley asked, already pulling out her toolkit. Right here, I pointed to the living room wall facing the entrance, where everyone can see it. As Riley hung the photo, my phone buzzed again, a message from Ethan's mother. He's asking about you. Says he wants to apologize properly. He seems genuinely sorry. I showed it to the others. Delete it, Brooke advised firmly, like I deleted Marcus's 100 messages of regret. Already done, I said without hesitation. Some chapters need to stay closed. Later that evening, we ordered pizza, opened Brooke's champagne, and started painting the living room. The color, a bold terracotta, was nothing like the safe beige Ethan had insisted on in our old house. It had warmth, character, life, everything my ex-husband had tried to minimize. Have you seen the latest property listings? Diane asked, rolling paint onto the walls with surprising skill. The houses they used for their parties are being converted into women's shelters. The Justice Department approved it this morning. Good, I said firmly, feeling a weight lift further. Something positive should come from all this. Zane's phone rang. He stepped out to take the call, returning with a satisfied smile that softened his usually serious features. That was the prosecutor, he announced. Ethan and Marcus took plea deals. They're looking at significant time, the others too. How long? Brooke asked quietly, her brush pausing mid-stroke. 5 to 7 years, plus restitution to all affected parties. Riley raised her champagne glass. To karma. Piper added, to friendship. Brooke chimed in, to new beginnings. To executive decisions. I finished, clinking my glass with theirs, the phrase that had once symbolized my powerlessness now representing my strength. As the evening wore on, we painted and planned. Brooke talked about the support group she'd started for women in similar situations, her designers already sketching logos and websites. Diane shared ideas for a financial literacy program for women going through divorce. Riley and Piper discussed their upcoming wedding, wondering if the new house could host the reception. You know what's funny? I said, stepping back to admire our work, the rich terracotta walls warming the room like a sunset. Ethan always said I was bad at making decisions, that I needed his guidance. And now look who's guiding who. Diane grinned, her analytical mind clearly appreciating the irony. My phone buzzed one final time, an email from the Justice Department, Victim Restitution Program first payment processed. What will you do with it? Zane asked. I looked around at my new home, at the family I'd chosen, at the life I'd rebuilt from the ashes of betrayal. In that moment, I knew exactly what I wanted. I'm thinking of starting a foundation, I said, the idea crystallizing as I spoke it aloud. For healthcare workers who need help getting out of bad situations. Legal aid, housing assistance, career counseling, that sort of thing. Count me in, Brooke said immediately, her design skills finding new purpose. Me too, Diane added, her financial expertise a perfect fit. Us three, Riley said, hugging Piper, their combined practical and emotional intelligence invaluable. Zane pulled out his business card, sliding it across the newly installed kitchen counter. You'll need a good lawyer. Epilogue, I looked at the newly painted wall, at our group photo hanging proudly in the center. The terracotta color reminded me of sunrise, warm, hopeful, and full of possibility. It was fitting for this new chapter of my life. You know what Ethan used to say about sunrise? I picked up my paint roller again, the weight comfortable in my hands after hours of work. That it was just the same sun, different day. Another 24 hours of the same routine. And what do you say? Piper asked, her teacher's curiosity genuine as she paused her painting to look at me. I dipped the roller in paint, adding another deliberate stroke to my fresh start, watching the color transform the wall just as I was transforming my life. I say it's a new sun, a new day, I replied, feeling the truth of it deep in my bones, and this time I'm the one making the executive decisions. The room filled with laughter and agreement, the sound echoing off newly painted walls that would never hide secrets or shelter lies, just truth, justice, and the family I'd found along the way. A family built not on legal documents or shared names, but on loyalty, respect, and the kind of love that shows up with paint rollers and champagne when you need to start over. As Riley hung string lights across the newly painted ceiling and Diane uncorked another bottle, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years, the simple joy of being exactly where I belonged, surrounded by people who saw my true worth. Not as someone's wife or someone's nurse, but as Morgan, strong, capable, and finally, completely free.